there any indies here? One. Okay, so this is two. This is for you. Hopefully, be a little bit interesting for everybody else. I'm Liam. I'm a co-director and founder of a small game development studio. We also publish some nature-themed games now as well. And I'm going to be talking about one game that we worked on called Empires of the Undergrowth. This goes to... Ooh. Okay. Videos aren't so great. It's an ant colony simulation management game for PC. And it took us a very long time to make it. So I wanted to give some background, some context to the talk to start with. In the beginning of 2014, we founded the company. There was three of us, me, John, and Matt. There was no money, so we all had jobs. And we were working on an ant colony strategy game on mobile in our spare time. Towards the end of 2015, we tried to kickstart that unsuccessfully. And that was seeming like it might have been the end of the idea. But very shortly afterwards, luckily, we got a grant from the UK Games Fund of 25k. I'm pretty certain that if we submitted that proposal in any of the subsequent rounds, we would have been rejected. I think that there might not have been too much competition the first time around. We did another Kickstarter. It was successful that time. We refocused on a PC game. And this money altogether was enough to pay Matt to work on the game full time, while the rest of us worked evenings and weekends trying to get something finished. At the end of 2017, we ran out of money, so that was time for an early access launch, and that actually went quite well. That was enough for us to all work on the game full time from that point onwards, and that takes us until last month when we launched into 1.0. And we're really quite happy with that. That's going to let us do all sorts of interesting things going forward. So I want to talk about this period in between. It's not exactly 7 years, it's 6.5, but 7 sounded more impressive, and some of the reasons why it took 7 years. So none of us had any game development experience. We'd never made a game before, and we had no experience in the industry. So what we made was a mess in Unreal Engine. We were using out-of-the-box Unreal Engine features to make an RTS, a strategy game with lots of agents, which is not what it's for, and we didn't really understand those systems that we were using. So the first thing we wanted to do was to fix all sorts of problems we had with AI, colliding agents, physics problems, things getting stuck. And what ended up happening was we iterate on these things, decided we knew exactly how to do it. 6 months had passed, and then we wanted to do it again because now we really know how to do it. And some of these things were remade 3, 4, 5 times over the life cycle of the project. We were trying to fulfill extremely ambitious Kickstarter promises, which we'd made having no idea how long they would take to actually fulfill. And of course, at the time, we were trying to promise everything so we'd get the money. And now we were stuck with all of these really difficult things like making a narrative game with 3 people. Feature creep on top of the Kickstarter stuff we had to do, because over this long period of time we'd have ideas and then run with them because there was no producer on this project. And also creating and supporting new content to appease annoyed players, and this will feed in to one of the ways of keeping the game alive. So only a few months after release, I think the earliest negative reviews of this nature were just a couple of months after we started to get these things. The game is very likely another one of those with great promise that is never finished. This game is super fun, but I feel like it will never be fully released. I don't think they're working on this anymore, sadly. And one of my favourites, as soon as this game has free play or sandbox mode, I will change this review to positive. 10 weeks later, free play mode launched, and we never changed it. So for us, what does keeping the game alive mean? It meant selling copies. It's a premium PC game, only on Steam. There's no in-game purchases. So in order to keep paying ourselves, we needed to keep finding new customers and selling copies to those people whilst we're still trying to finish the game in early access, which seems to be becoming less and less relevant since launch. I've split what we did into 4 areas. If I had 2 hours to talk, I'd probably have split it into 10 or 15, so there's not much thought to that grouping. And this is definitely not something I think everybody should do. Some of the things that we did, I have statistical evidence for that I don't have time to show. Some I don't, and it's just my feeling that it was a good idea. And of course, I'm talking about quite a niche game. It's an RTS, and it's also about ants. So some of these things might be quite specific to our game. So I'm going to go through these one by one now. New content for the community. This is probably the most important thing that we did. We realized early on that when YouTubers played the game, we got more traffic, sales, downloads, whatever. We had a demo before the game launched, and YouTubers started to cover it, and we got a lot of wish lists from that. And there was 2 different types of YouTuber. So there's one that plays the game once because it's silly and fun, it's got ants in, and then they move on. And then there's another that does a series of 10 videos and tries to get all of the content out of the game they can, because their subscribers are loving seeing it. And those subscribers are likely a large portion of those are potential customers. So by adding new content to the game, YouTubers would play it again, and then we'd reach new players. The problem was we were doing these really long development periods, remaking basic systems, optimizing things. YouTubers aren't interested in that. So we started to add on different modes to the game, like free play. It was never designed to go on there in the first place. And extra levels. They're just little individual levels that we created, didn't take too much work, using assets that were already available in the game. And we were trying to put that sort of stuff out every 2 to 4 months. I've got an example here of one of the extra level trailer videos. Each one of them had its own trailer, and Mike, our community manager, used to do visual effects, so he always puts a funny, cool effect on the text at the beginning. I just checked one of the extra levels on YouTube, one called Occupation. I found over 60 videos. They didn't do particularly well. These aren't crazy high view counts, but because these things were happening consistently every few months, we were always relevant. There was always a new video that some content creator was making, and this was just pushing sort of low-level traffic to the Steam page, sales over time. And of course, if the game's selling, Steam will increase visibility on the Steam store as well. Next thing we did, keeping the community informed about development. This was mostly to try and mitigate those negative reviews, trying to convince people that we were working on the game. So many people thought, especially after a year or 2 years had passed, that it really was dead. There's a lot of suspicion around early access. So we started putting out a bi-monthly newsletter, a bi-monthly vlog talking about some of the more in-depth things that we were doing. And the channel grew quite nicely over time. These are quite popular now when we put them out. We opened a Discord. We were quite late to the party with this one because we were holding on to our forum that we had originally for a long time. But you definitely need this now. I think our Discord now is something like 10,000 members. Not all of them are active, but there's a lot going on in there. It's full of ant memes, speed runners, and fantastic community QA, which is really useful and doesn't cost anything. Taking any opportunity for increased visibility. I'm talking about social media events, things that don't require a game update to increase discoverability and visibility. I think of this as a supplementary thing. If the game has got an audience and there's a community and they're interested in it, then this is a great add-on, but it's not going to work on its own unless the game is incredibly memey and visual. So I'll go through a couple of these quickly. I like TikTok. I don't use it myself, but it's kind of fun watching a game page on TikTok appear. It's got a nice feature that even when a TikTok doesn't do very well, doesn't go viral, there'll be a little bit of interaction. You'll tend to get comments on TikToks, whereas if a post on Twitter doesn't do very well, you might not. And people will ask relevant things, you know, will this ant ever be in the game? This is my favourite spider. And you can have a bit of conversation, and we don't have a lot of direct correlation from TikTok to wish lists and sales, but seeing that interaction makes me feel like there's something going on there that's working, some background awareness of the game. And sometimes they take off. Last month, our marketing content creator made this. I don't understand why it's got 2.5 million views, but it has 1,200 comments. If you take away nothing else from this presentation, it's that spiders with hats on always seem to do well for us on TikTok. Unfortunately, I don't have actual stats for what that did, because that was part of our launch campaign. We were doing so much stuff at once, everything was piled on. But I'm sure if we'd have seen that on its own, it would have had some definite visual effect on sales and wish lists. This one I understand a little bit better. Reddit, it's harder to make a post on Reddit do well. People are much more skeptical, much less likely to like it. But the users tend to be a little bit older, they've got a bit more money, they're more likely to be using a PC, and more likely to convert into customers. Events, physical events are great. Digital events, particularly if you've got a game on Steam and it's the event has been featured on Steam. So there's an event going on at the moment that we're in called Automation Game Sale. I haven't actually checked if it's featured because it should have gone onto the front page at 6 PM today, so I haven't actually had a look yet. And that should have a weekend feature going through until Monday. And these are really good for visibility. Lots of games get extra visibility that way without having to be popular enough to get to the front page themselves. We co-organise our own event with Mechanistery and Straightforward. They make Timberborn and The Wandering Village. And this lines up with World Earth Day. So we pick a load of games that are, half of them are nature-y and half of them we say they're eco-dystopian. So there's this mix of look how beautiful the planet is, look how terrible things could be if we don't look after it. And the last one, reaching out to new markets. So I can talk for a very long time about this. I won't. I think there's all sorts of opportunities for targeting your social media differently in different countries. I think some games are likely to unexpectedly do well in a particular region, and you should explore that. For us, Empires of the Undergrowth has always done really well in China. We realised this when we found that before the first release of the game, the demo had been cracked and translated into Chinese by Chinese players. So we knew that we needed to get Chinese localization in early on. There's you probably know Chinese players can't access YouTube, Twitter. They have their own social media. This is Bilibili. It's sort of like a mix between YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook all mushed into one. And if you search Empires of the Undergrowth on Bilibili, you'll find lots of videos there from content creators that we had no connection to. So more recently, we've been trying to build those connections, be more proactive with Chinese social media. And now these are sales from the last 12 months. And you can see that now by far China is the largest consumer of Empires of the Undergrowth, which is interesting. It's something we never expected. That's partly helped by the UK Global Screen Fund. I've got to thank them. Last year we got an International Business Development grant that allowed us to hire 2 new team members to work on social media strategy and content creation with a focus on exploring new markets, particularly in East Asia. And from the content side, we're able to do things like this. This is another extra level. It took 3 months to make. I probably would have never been allowed to do this if I had a producer. So it's full Chinese narration and no English narration. So if you want to play it and you don't speak Chinese, you have to put the subtitles on. It's a story for Chinese New Year about the Queen Anne has prepared hot pot for her family, and they're all visiting, but she's forgotten the spices, so you have to go up and collect those, and you get firecrackers. It's lots of fun. This was really popular for Chinese New Year. The Bilibili streamers loved it as well. So that was the 4 parts, and that's the end. I've ended with this nice bit of fan art. It's my favourite fan art. It's the Formica erecta ant team by a Japanese insect artist, Shiro Hiroshi. So any questions?